year. This loan will cover payroll and operating expenses through year end. We also have 2 outstanding equity purchase agreements. The Mark Day and David Drake Group, the latest update from them is that they're still working on putting the full financing in place to close the deal. Our deal is part of a bigger deal that they are doing, so they're trying to, their idea is to merge our company with a couple of other companies, and you know, they've got some big ideas and they're working on the financing for all of that. The other financing proposal we have is from the Armenta Group, and this is a group that we met with about 2 years ago. They came back to us recently with some more equity investor people. We actually, Jesus and I met with them last week, and we've just received a written proposal from them with the terms and conditions. We haven't had a chance to really study the whole thing, but Jesus just showed me that it did come in this morning, and so we'll analyze that over the weekend. But I think we'll be in a position soon to make a decision on who we want as an equity partner. And with the equity closing, we'll immediately begin the completion of the underground electric, completion of the sewer treatment plant here, the completion of the condos, the roads, the landscaping in La Ventana del Mar. With shovels in the ground again, we'll also be able to restart marketing and sales. This will get the growth moving forward again, and with new sales, we'll be able to rebuild the finances of the company and the HOA. Through the recession, we lost quite a few owners who decided, for personal reasons, many of them with financial circumstances, to give up their lot purchases at El Dorado Ranch and La Ventana del Mar. So we really need to rebuild our owner base. Let me speak for a minute about Master Trust. Master Trust transfers from HSBC and to Banco Inmobiliaria de Mexico. This morning with us are folks from BIM, from Banco Inmobiliaria, and before I take questions, I'm going to let Ernesto Fagoso speak for a few minutes about their services, and they're here for any of you that have questions about Master Trust or Individual Trust. 2.5 years ago, we began to transfer the HSBC Master Trust certificates to Banco Inmobiliaria Mexicano, and we'll remind those of you that have not yet completed the paperwork to transfer their HSBC Master Trust certificate to BIM to please do so. If you don't know if you fall into this category of ownership, please check with the sales office. They can tell you very quickly. On the individual trust transfer from HSBC to Banco Inmobiliaria, in January we began the process of transferring HSBC individual trust to Banco Inmobiliaria. If you have an individual trust with HSBC, you know that they're no longer in the trust business, and HSBC is not cooperating with owners when they want to sell their property. And this is the case all over Mexico. It's not specific to us. HSBC got themselves into a big money laundering situation a couple of years ago, got fined about almost $1 billion, and decided to close their trust department. They had a lot of people that were open trust accounts and funneling money through it that were really phony accounts, so they went out of the trust business. Once individual trust holders have paid HSBC to become current in annual fees, the cost of transferring the individual trust from HSBC to BIM is, including the notary fees, is $2,006, $2,006. Emails were sent to owners with HSBC individual trust beginning in January that included a procedural memo. If an owner wants to hire their own attorney and complete the process on their own and pay the costs incurred with the transfer, they can do so. If you wish to remain with HSBC, your trust and property is still safe. They're still gonna, if people want to stay there, they still will honor that. Let me speak to the golf course for just a minute. Last weekend on October 18 and 19, we had our 14th annual charity golf tournament. We had the largest playing field in some years with about 90 players. able to donate $15,000 to the charity fund, the Universal Golf Foundation, for the continuing education of San Felipe children that want to continue their education. And in many cases, these are good students that come from poor families. I want to thank all the players and sponsors for their generosity. And I also want to acknowledge Ernesto Fagoso for Banco Immobiliaria standing up as our major sponsor. Other significant sponsors were Baja Medical and Cabo Baja Group. We also have been able to, we've received a pledge from an anonymous owner donation of $5,000 that will go to the Kobash School that we're working with right now for students to apply for these scholarships, and that's enough money to educate 25 kids for a full year. And if the program is successful, the anonymous donor wants to continue to make this an annual pledge. I also want to thank the La Ventana del Mar condo lot and homeowners that contribute $469 annually for the golf course maintenance to keep the golf course in shape, and in turn gives us the ability to hold this tournament, and there's another charity tournament held here every year, but our tournament specifically is for the children and their education. Also, a special acknowledgement to our golf maintenance team led by engineer Jesus Velarde, who's done a great job in bringing the course back. It's not exactly where we need it, but it's getting closer. And Paul Lindsay, one of our residents that brings every year 15 computer backsacks for specially selected students by their professors, kids from the San Felipe School. Paul's also then donated $10,000 in new musical instruments for the new San Felipe Student Orchestra, and that group now has 40 active members, kids that are learning how to play instruments. And of course, I don't want to forget the volunteers who are always great with this event, and our activity staff led by Jorge Libros, which without them, we couldn't have done the tournament. Let me give you an update on NIBCO, who is a manufacturer of the pipe that was used in the condos where we have pipe leaks. Both the defendant, NIBCO, who's a manufacturer, and the plaintiff, Constructor Vicencita, who is a builder, the attorneys are both challenging the expert declarations of the respective sides. So our attorneys are a group called the Lens Group. They say it probably will take 30 to 45 days for the judge to make a ruling on the expert testimonies, whether he'll allow them or not. After the judge's ruling, we hope that the two parties will get together to attempt to arrive at a negotiated settlement. We're currently scheduled for a jury trial May 14th in 2020 in federal court in South Bend, Indiana. And they're the NIBCO companies from Indiana. And we have no control over the timing or decisions made by the federal judge, of course. Let me speak for a minute to the barbecues and the condos, where we've had a few fire issues. This is specific to condo units number 3, models 3 and models 4. So our condo insurance provider notified us that the barbecues in the 3 and 4 models need to be moved away from the common walls or removed altogether. All owners and property management companies have been notified back in March and have been provided with the architectural drawings to accomplish the relocation of the barbecue. All the owners have complied with the exception of 9 owners. These owners have been notified multiple times. The consequences of not having 100% compliance is the cancellation of our insurance policy for the entire condo complex. So we're giving one last notice to these 9 owners, and if they don't comply, we'll remove the barbecues in these units to protect the safety and to retain the insurance for all the condo owners. We can take this action per our regulations, and it doesn't require us to enter the units. So for the good of Las Villa owners, all the Las Villa owners, we ask that the 9 non-complying owners comply. We speak for just a second about Baja Medical Center. The owners of Baja Medical announced that they're working with their architects to to complete the drawings for the expansion of their newly planned medical facilities. They expect to begin construction in 2020, and they'll make the announcement of the start date and the expected completion date of construction in the near future. Also, we were advised yesterday they still have 20 flu shots for any of you that might want to get a flu shot. A comment about the Vaquita Marina and the fisherman update that I believe everybody here knows about the ongoing battle or disagreement with the federal government and the commercial fishermen using illegal gill nets in the Sea of Cortez to capture the totuaba, which is a giant sea bass, for the purpose of harvesting the fish's bladder, which is called a pulchi, which is sold in the black market in China for $25,000 a kilo. A kilo of pulchi in San Felipe is about $5,000 a kilo. It's referred to as sea cocaine. The bycatch of the gill net is responsible for the kill-off of the vaquita, which is the baby porpoise. So the totuaba and the vaquita are endemic, and they're only here in the Sea of Cortez. They're not found anyplace else in the world. Both species are endangered, and they're supposed to be internationally protected. The illegal gill net fishing continues with no effective policing by the federal government. We know the federal government has had high-level Mexico City authorities here recently in San Felipe assessing the whole situation. We still have 3 Sea Shepherd ships remaining here dragging the upper Gulf of the Sea of Cortez to capture the gill nets. National Geographic has just put out the whole story about the Vaquita Marina in a movie called The Sea of Shadows. The movie actually points out the non-compliance by the Mexican government for the non-enforcement of the international agreement, which 163 countries are party to since 1973, and that agreement was signed to protect endangered species in their own countries. Due to the worldwide viewing of this movie, it's now available on Amazon on demand, the Mexican government is getting a lot of international pressure from the environmentalist and world organizations. The U.S., in fact, has threatened to cut off the sale of any Mexican fish products in the U.S. if Mexico doesn't take a greater effort to protect these endangered species. Let me give you a little bit of an update about Enveravante. Enveravante is a Spanish resort company that's planning to build a mega project 30 miles south of San Felipe International Airport. According to the Secretary of Tourism's office, and recently Enveravante is in the final process of completing the infrastructure agreements with the state and federal governments. The biggest issue that I've been made aware of is the request for 40 kVAs of electricity from CFE. CFE says that they can only supply 6 kVA, so Enveravante is planning to build a 40 kVA solar farm. They've also worked out a plan for the wells permits that they have and for a desalinization plant. And I've been told that the permit for the desal plant was $1 million, and that I know they already paid $1 million for a permit to dredge the Estero, where they plan to put part of their marina in what they call the Crystal Lagoon. So their entire investment for this project, which is called Marina Azul Resort, is reported to be over $1 billion. So we expect them to break ground this year. Comment about the new the new government in Baja, and the new governor is a fellow by the name of Jaime Bonilla. He takes office with his new cabinet tomorrow on November 1. And our new Mexicali municipal president is a woman, Marina del Pilar Avila Olmeda, and her cabinet, and they took office in October. So both groups are from the Morena party, which is the same party as the Mexican president, Lopez Obrador. So supposedly with all the state, federal government officials being from the same party, it will be a little bit easier to manage from a business standpoint, get things done. In closing my comments, I'd like to thank the Supervisory Committee led by President Steve Kemme. Steve, when I mention you guys by name, would you just stand up so we can see who you are? Thank you, Steve. And EDR Committee members Ed Jones and Dick Peterson. Thank you. And the La Ventana Del Mar Committee members Denise Lavin and Hans Wilschutz. See Hans here?
He has a medical appointment.
Okay, Hans has got a medical excuse, okay. And Las Villa Committee members Martha Rizak and Gary Lambert. This group works tirelessly and formally meets on a monthly basis to make sure the HOA is operating efficiently and on budget and in the best interest of the owners. Steve has agreed to serve as a president for 2 more years at my request. I also want to thank the HOA staff led by Roberto Islas, and my EDR development staff led by Jesus Olmos. And of course, thank you. And of course, my wife Doreen for all of her administrative assistance and support. And also in closing, happy Halloween. And don't forget there's a big Halloween party tonight in Juanitos. And the Shrimp Festival is also this weekend. It begins tomorrow down in the Malecon. So with that, I'm going to have Ernesto come up and just speak about them for a second, and they're going to be available after the meeting for anybody that has individual questions for them. And then after I let Ernesto speak for a minute, then I'll take questions from the floor. And when we take the questions, please go to the microphone. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Pat, for having us. Thank you, Jesus, Doreen, thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. My name is Ernesto, and I'm the director of Banco Inmobiliario Mexicano, the trustee department. Who is Banco Inmobiliario Mexicano? Banco Inmobiliario Mexicano is the trustee bank that holds the 5 master trusts for El Dorado Ranch development. Also, is the trustee bank that holds some of the individual property trusts for some of you. And also, Banco Inmobiliario Mexicano is helping the closing office of the El Dorado Ranch to transfer the individual property trust from HSBC to Banco Inmobiliario Mexicano. So, mainly because of the reason that HSBC, as Pat said, are out of the business for many years, and they don't want the trust business anymore. And so it's kind of, you can stay there, as Pat said, but it's complicated to deal with them if you want to make an assignment of right, if you want to sell, if you want to make some changes in your trust. It's really difficult to do it. Well, the trustee substitution of the trustee from HSBC to our bank, we are working with Juan Manuel from the closing office of El Dorado Ranch in Mexicali to transfer we made a negotiation to transfer in a very simple way. It's not that easy, so we are asking you to help us to deliver some documents. If you still are in HSBC bank with your individual trust, we can help you out to transfer to our bank, to Banco Inmobiliario Mexicano, mainly because of the reasons that they are not in the business anymore and it's complicated to stay there. As I said in the beginning, we hold the 5 master trusts for El Dorado Ranch, and there are issued a lot, thousands of trust certificates. We are making replace the HSBC certificates to our bank. It's a very easy process. However, we need some documents from you, and we need your help to approach our updated the office of El Dorado Ranch to make the transfer from the certificate issued by HSBC, which was the previous trustee, to our bank. I don't know if I'm confusing you, but if I'm going to be around here to answer some question at the end of this chat. Well, the trust certificate owners that are in the master trust, that they don't have an individual property trust and has only one certificate, they have a couple of important limitations according to the master trust and according to the original permit from the Federal Office of Foreign Affairs. So in the trust certificates, there are no beneficiary substitutes in case of death, okay? And this certificate, according to the trust and according to the law, are unable to sell it to somebody else. If you want to sell the property, you need to set up a new trust and then make the transfer. And if you don't have beneficiary substitutes, it's going to be a problem because the property can go to a testamentary trial, and the certificate, your beneficiary, your sons, your grandsons, needs to start a judicial process either in the States or outside Mexico, Canada, or in Mexico. It takes a lot of time to finish this kind of process, and takes a lot of money to do it. In order to find a solution to this problem with the trust certificates, we make an alliance with a financial institution, a Mexican financial institution, to set up a estate planning trust with that certificate, okay? These estate planning trusts with the certificate are very cost efficient, and the thing here is that we are trying to solve this kind of problem you have, the certificates owners has with this kind of with the substitute and with the issue that you are unable to transfer these certificates. So I'm gonna ask Carla, which is from this financial institution, to stand up and explain a little bit about this estate planning trust with the certificate, which doesn't involve a transfer of the property. Is pretty much tax-free. It's a very low cost and solve pretty much the problem. Let me. And solve pretty much the problem that the trust certificate owners are facing regarding the substitutes that you are unable to designate in such certificate, and regarding that the certificates you are unable to transfer, to sell it, to donate it. It's a very efficient way to solve this kind of problem. Carla.
Good morning, you guys. Let me just start by saying thank you for having us. So, as I said, as Ernesto said, we are SAMA. That stands for Solid Asset Management, and we are a financial institution that's duly registered under the Mexican laws. We are under the supervision of the National Banking Commission, which is similar to the SEC in the U.S., and we are also under the supervision of CONDUCEF, that is a commission that protects the user of these financial institutions. We are specialized in trust, as a trustee, of course, and we specialize too in financial real estate, financial issues. Okay? So we have here a little representation of the master trust that some of you guys are in. On your right, we have every single one of your trust certificates, which are on the master trust. Every single one of these certificates, it represents everything that is contained in the master trust. Okay? So a lot of you guys have been asking how to certificate. How to inherit my trust, how to inherit my property. So, as Ernesto was saying, the certificate has two great limitations. One of them is that it doesn't have a testamentary clause in case of the holder's death. And you can sell it, you can donate it, you can, only if you have an individual trust, which some of you know that it costs a lot of time, costs a lot of money, and you know, it's a great limitation for you guys. So we still, we have here an example of this if you decide to do an individual trust. So we have, of course, you have to get a permit from the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, which it costs $1,000, even more. The bank fees are $450 to be paid only once. Annual administration on the beginning, that is also $450, and then every year after that. And notary expenses that add about from 5 to 6% above the property value, which we have here an example of $150,000 property, which gave us a grand total of $11,000. So there's, yeah, $11,000 are a lot, and of course there's the time factor. So we still have the question of how to inherit my trust. Well, one of the things that you can do, and one of the things that some of you are doing right now is, well, it's nothing, because what happens here is that you are giving that limitation to your kids and grandkids, which later become problems. Why? Because you have to start here in Mexico, you have to start a testamentary trial, which costs lawyers, which costs notaries, and you know, time. It could take about 1.5 to even up to 3 years to do this testamentary trial here in Mexico. And it also takes about 15 to 25% of the property value, which if we take the same example as before, the $150,000 property, it could be up to $30,000, even more. And if you decide to do it in the U.S., it can also be done, but remember that every sentence, every document, everything that we have that's in the U.S. or even Canada, it has to be legalized here in Mexico. So we go back to the same problem: the fees, the notary expenses, the lawyer fees, and the time. So, sorry, and so we don't want you guys to deal with these limitations. We don't want that kind of problems later on. So we set up a state plan and trust. So this is what happens. You, as a certificate holder, provide us with the certificate, and we, Sama, as a fiduciary, as a trustee, put it in the trust, and it stays the same. It stays in the master trust, but only this time you get to name substitutes. You get to name the heirs of this property. Okay? So what are the pros to this? Let me just start by saying there are no cons. There are only pros. Why? Because you plan ahead. You have someone to get your property even before you are gone. Let's just hope that it doesn't happen really quick. So upon the death of the certificate holder, the beneficiary, the substitute, gives us the death certificate, and that's it. He can execute his trust or her trust as their own. There are low notary fees. It's a really fast process. It can be done within a week. It allows you to make changes. You can name a substitute right now, but then you can name another one. You can remove it. You can do whatever you want. And why is it doesn't cost any taxes? Why? Because the property is not being transferred. It's just you planning ahead. So we have here an example, the same example of the $150,000 property. So there's no permit because you stay in the master trust. There's going to be no permit cost. Setup fees are only $250 to be paid only once. The annual administration will be $250 too. There will be no notary expenses if you do it this year. If you do it next year, it could be around $250, which gave us a grand total of $500, which there's really no comparison with the $11,000 that we talked about earlier. So this is pretty much it. We are really hoping you guys let us explain a little bit more individually if you want to. We partner up with Homeowners Association because we really believe this is a solution for you to plan ahead and to get rid of these limitations and not let them become problems. So if you have any questions, we are going to be right there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you have a Mexican will, in order to have it.
Okay, so yeah, if you can also say, well, I have a will, I have a Mexican will, I have a U.S. will. Well, it also is going to cost you time and money. Why? Because that will, it has to be legalized. Even if it's a Mexican will, you have to start a testamentary trial. It will also cost you lawyer expenses and notary expenses. And of course, there's a time that it could take about 1.5 to 3 years.
Then why have a will?
Aldo, quédate acá, güey.
Questions? Is that apply also for us that have a dual citizenship?
I'm sorry, I didn't want to get that.
First question, does that ruling applies also to one of us that have a dual citizenship?
Get closer to the mic.
If you have a dual citizenship, does that apply? Does that be up?
By dual you mean you're Mexican and American citizen? If you are in that situation and if you own a certificate, a trust certificate? No? Well, either if you own a trust certificate or either you have an individual property trust, you can cancel both, any of them and transfer the property directly to you as a Mexican. You can do it. Yeah, if you have a living trust in the States, it's gonna pass what Carla is saying. They need to start the legal process in the States to execute that trust and then legalize those documents in Mexico, which takes time and money. But as a Mexican, you can own the property directly in Mexico. So you can, it's pretty much easier to transfer that property, and it's pretty much easier to make a will and just leave the property in a will, in a Mexican will, as a Mexican. Either if you want to make an individual trust, even though you are Mexican, a testamentary trust, you can do it. And it's going to be the same efficient way we are explaining right now. I don't know if I'm explaining myself.
But if you have a Mexican citizenship, you don't need a trust. If you want some extra security, and some Mexicans do get individual trust just so they've got additional security that with the title of the property. But it's not necessary. If you're a Mexican citizen, you don't have to, if you have citizenship, you don't have to have a trust. So if there are any other questions for Ben, the folks, if you can just stay afterwards, and then they'll answer questions for you. I'll have them come up here and sit, and the ones that have questions about trust, then they'll come up here and you guys can ask them one-on-one. Let me just open it up to the floor for questions for me, for the developer. Okay.
purchased a home in the ranch 2012, and I paid you guys $7,500 for a fideicomiso, which I never got. I had to hire attorney Carmen, who knows to get it through. How do I recover the money I paid you guys for not getting the trust?
You know, we have several problems like that, you know, because the HSBC problems, you know, started like 6 years ago. I mean, that's why, you know, and we make the decision to change to Banco Inmobiliario Mexicano. Then we need to see your specific, you know, status and your fideicomiso, and we will move forward with Banco Inmobiliario Mexicano.
Okay, I'm supposed to get the fideicomiso tomorrow in Mexicali. So who should I talk to at the ranch after that?
Yeah, Juan Manuel Perez is here also, you know, from our Mexicali office, and I'm here, you know, you can talk to me or with him.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question for Pat. How many condominiums have not been finished? How many of those unfinished condominiums are going to have to be torn down and rebuilt because they've been exposed to the weather for all these years? And what is the dollar figure it's going to take just to finish the condominiums, not the roads or anything else? What dollar amount are we talking about?
So we delivered 239 condos out of 300, so we have 61 left to deliver. I have 3 people two from California, 1 from Oregon, that live here at the ranch, that are retired building inspectors, and they've volunteered to help us with various things. And so I've had those guys, 2 guys and a gal, look at the condominium structure and tell me what has to be torn out. Of course, I know that, you know, any kind of sheetrock or any, you know, plywood, all that stuff's got to go. Some of the framing, because all that was imported kiln wood, they tell me is still good. They've actually done nail tests and drill tests on it to determine how, you know, viable it is to keep parts of those structures. And when we get to the point of really getting in there to redo them, the first thing we're going to do is close everything up and finish the outsides of them, put doors and windows in, and then all of them, as you know, have 2-car garage and 3-car garages, and as we finish them out, we'll be able to keep equipment and materials inside those garages while the contractors are finishing them out. So the cost of doing all that, we probably, to finish the other 61, I'm going to tell you it's probably about 200 grand a condo. So it's probably going to cost me about $3.5 million bucks to finish them.
And you think that's going to be viable with this new equity loan you were talking about?
It's already built into our program, yes.
Yes, Pat. Now, tomorrow is our meeting, and there's about a $1.5 million budget item on contracts. Just a quick question, because I don't think they're going to know this tomorrow, but the CAM contract, which you know most about, is that an indefinite contract as it stands now, or does it have a term? Does it renew, each year?
It's indefinite until such time as the developer or CAM decides not to be the management company. It is, I saw those comments going around yesterday. It doesn't have a termination date. It's until such time as CAM is not the management company anymore.
Okay, then a follow-up to that is, there were, I guess, 2 CAMs, I guess in 2012 or so. There was, now, is it CAM management now that's the contract between the HOA or is it, a different kind of CAM? I'm confused there.
Yes, the actual CAM is called CAM management, SRLSB.
Okay, thank you.
So I misspoke a minute ago about the cost of finishing those units up. At 200 grand a unit, it's about 12 million, not 3 million.
Pat, could you speak some about the separation of San Felipe from Mexicali and what you think the impact of that will be?
Well, the new governor, Jaime Bonilla, in one of his platform promises was that he wanted to have San Felipe become its own municipality. And in order to do that, there are certain things that we have to prove that San Felipe can manage and do, which means primarily sustainability, financial sustainability. So there is, we have the Economic Development Council, which will be part of that. Bonilla takes office, as I mentioned, tomorrow, and we'll start to learn a lot more about that. I'm sure that what's going to happen is the last municipality was made in Baja was in Rosarito, and that was back in '93. So for us to become a new municipality, it's going to take, I'm sure, a couple of outside expert consultant types, and a good amount of work here in the local community with the retail businesses, different businesses, and reviewing the tax rolls and et cetera, to see if we really can show sustainability and financial viability. So, but it is definitely something that Bonilla wants to do, and there's also been discussion about annexing part of what is Ensenada right now, which goes down to Portecidas and Gonzaga Bay, and making that all part of the San Felipe municipality. And then we would wind up having all the municipal offices like urban planning and all the different offices that are in Mexicali would be locally here in San Felipe. And of course we have to be able to afford all that. So I think it's going to be a little challenging to prove sustainability, but we have some varying ideas about how to get the revenues that are required to build the sustainability answer up.
Pat, at the beginning of the meeting you said that you had interim financing arranged to carry you through the end of this calendar year, I believe. And if your equity arrangements don't happen before you exhaust the cash, what happens?
Well, the HOA, of course, would remain intact and on its own. From a standpoint of us, me, the developer, it would be a real challenge to, continue for a sustained period of time without the financing in place. So I would say that, that if for some unfortunate reason I don't get financing in place, I would say that me as a developer would probably be challenged a little bit come sometime like May of 2020 or something, because we have limited resources on our own. I'm pretty confident that, even if we had we have a big asset base. My asset base is over $200 million. So even if I had the wholesale stuff, then I think we could do that to maintain ourselves. But we're not at that point, and I think we've got a couple of viable options that we'll know the outcome of very shortly. The one that's coming in today actually has all the payment terms in the schedule, and which is part of what we required from the people we met with last week. And there is a pretty big sizable non-refundable deposit that they have to make, which would, go a long ways to help the company out.
Actually, that asked a lot of the question I was going to ask, but kind of in relationship to that, one of the last notices that you gave to all of us, you mentioned that one of the lenders and/or potential partners was picking up the tab until the deal closes. And now today we understand it's more like a bridge loan. So which one is right? What happened to the, if in fact they were paying it? And then I guess the second part of my question would be, since we all know how many of these deals did in fact fall through, I was curious how you would handle that loan if in fact all this stuff fell through, which you've more or less answered that. And quickly, one other question is, who would be best to direct a Baja Medical Clinic question to? Is that a developer issue or is that an HOA issue?
It's primarily HOA.
Okay, so I'll ask that question at the HOA meeting.
Yeah, with the Drake Group, you know, it's been a disappointing thing because we've amended our contract. You know, we've had 3 contracts to sell this place or to bring in an equity partner in. And in all 3 cases, none of them have been able to come up with financing to close the deal. So that's been disappointing. And with the Drake Group, we've made 2 amendments to our original contract. And all of that sits in an escrow account with a U.S. attorney right now, a California attorney that's one of our attorneys. And so if we get a better offer, which I'm expecting we might get, then we'll just cancel the Drake Group and go forward with the other one, because the other group we're talking to says that their goal is to get everything closed before year-end. Year-end in Mexico, we all know, is not past about December 15th, when government offices start to close down for the holidays. So, you know, we've got, you know, a couple of months, a month and a half, whatever it is, for them to get the deal done. But like I say, part of what they do, you know, part of their deal is a pretty sizable non-refundable deposit. I told them that's required for me to cancel the other deal. So,
have you thought at all about approaching the Spanish group as sort of a subsidiary?
I have. I mean, I've talked to the Secretary of Tourism, Oscar Espinito, who is going out of office, but his brother, Mario, is actually going to work for Boni as a super secretary responsible for 6 different areas, including tourism, etc. So I talked to Oscar about having a discussion with the Spanish group. Jesus had a meeting with him in my absence a week ago, and he knows that I mentioned to him, you know, that I would be happy to go meet with Manuel Jove, who's the owner of the Spanish group in Barabante and Madrid, and so I put that on the table with Oscar, and Oscar's thinking about it a little bit, because I told him it would make a lot, I think it would make a lot of sense for both of us, so.
I'm Penny Nask, and I've lived here for 12 years, and I love it here, and thanks for everything that you guys do. I have a question that is dealing with more of the municipality question, and there's been talk about, as a developer, could you explain to us a little bit about some of the fishing options that people are talking about? I'm hearing rumors if we teach the fishermen to choose Corvina instead of this or that. I know I don't have enough information about the fishing options that fishermen have, and my question is, do you?
Well, first of all, the gill nets, you know, they're different size gill nets, but the gill nets that they're using to capture the tatuaba with, because the tatuaba are larger fish, they have a bigger opening in the net, and those nets are made out of silk, So they're very tough for a fish to break through it or get out of it. And it definitely kills the Waikita. So the nets that they're allowed to fish with are nylon nets, which the bigger fish can break through. And they have a new system called a chango, but the fishermen don't like it. They say it's not very efficient. And the big thing is that the guys that are illegally catching the Totoaba are up here in the upper Gulf, and what we call the polygono, a big polygono area, which is a mapped out area that's probably, you know, maybe 3 or 4 miles in rectangular diameter. And that's where that's where the Totoaba spawn to, and that's where the Waikita live. And so what they're trying to do, and that's why the 3 Sea Shepherd ships are out there dragging that particular area, because in some cases I've heard that there's as much as, you know, there are miles of nets strung together, and that these guys go out and harvest at night to get this Totoaba, and of course they strip the bladder out of it to sell the bladder and leave the fish in the water and throw them on the beach, and you know, which is ridiculous. But so environmentally, it's really a nightmare, and it is a serious situation about the government not doing anything about it. I mean, we've got all the resources in the world here with the Army and Navy, and what they need to do is be able to. The federal government needs to tell them, to give them instructions to do a better job at controlling this illegal fishing. You know, one of the initiatives that we have in town is for sports fishing and for changing norm number 59, which is the norm that protects the Totoaba and it from being, changes it. A minor change in norm number 59 would allow for limited number of permits per year to sports fish that particular area. Totoaba, you know, I mean, a Waikita, a baby porpoise is not going to go near a fishing line. I mean, so they're not, I think that's the only chance we have to save the Waikita, is make that whole area just for limited numbers of sports fishing permits per year. And our proposal, myself and some others that have worked on this, is to take 60% of the net proceeds after the cost of the concession and give it back to town, which would really help make the town sustainable. And in the first year, our estimates are that we would return about $6 million worth of income to the city, and by about the 5th year, that doubles. It gets to about 12 million. So, and that's with 5,000 permits a year that allow for 2 Totoaba to be caught a year. A Totoaba female, when they're 8 years old, can lay 1 million eggs a year, and so they can repopulate pretty quickly. And over in the University of Baja California in Ensenada, that new the facilities they built to breed Totoaba is capable of putting out 800,000 to 1 million fingerlings a year. And this is their natural habitat. So we have a big initiative going on with the university and with some of the government guys, but it really is a federal issue that has to be resolved federally. And so we're hoping with the changes in this administration and everything that we can move this initiative forward to get sports fishing. And sports fishing, if we brought 5,000 fishermen, and we've got 70 million registered fishermen in the United States and 9 million in Canada. If we brought 5 million people here a year that could only, 5,000 people here a year that could only catch that fish in this particular area, then we would sell those permits quickly, and it would bring, the average fisherman's going to stay in town 3 or 4 days. So it would create a lot of spending. We'd need more hotel rooms, we'd need more restaurants, we'd need, it would dump a lot of additional income into the town. So we think that that's an initiative that, I mean, this is a God-given, you know, made product. I mean, you don't have to farm it or do anything else with it. You just need to protect it and just take a limited amount out a year, and, you know, makes it very sustainable.
Thank you very much for your explanation of this, because I think it's really important to understand what's going on. How close are we to this happening? It's just, you don't know.
Well, you know, I brought this, I was asked by the past Federal Secretary of Tourism, Francisco de la Madrid, whose father used to be the President of Mexico, who's a Harvard graduate guy, a Harvard Business School guy, and he just went out of office, of course, with this change of presidency, but I was in a private meeting, invited to a private meeting, and had a discussion with him about this, and he said, you know, I think it's a great idea, you know, if you would put the time in to do what we call a Project executive project, and with all the scientific backup and everything you need to prove the viability of it, then we would certainly look at that. Well, we spent about 2 years putting that project together, so it's all done. It's been presented to them, and now with the change of government, we just need to go. We've had some high-level meetings already, but we need to push that initiative forward.
Telnor, you know that phone company, internet company that we pay for and get no services? Do you know what is really happening, or can you find out and give us, or have Roberto give us a real answer as to whether we're going to ever get our Telnor back, those of us on the WiMAX system?
Well, Telnor is limited, you know, with the service, you know, since I think probably 2 years ago. Then there is another company called Links. It's next to La Ventana del Mar in the road, where they provide, you know, all the internet services and all that.
I know that, and we all know that, and a lot of ranch residents have been lined up at Telcel getting their modem to get internet. But are we realistically, is the WiMAX system going to be fixed or updated, or should we just kiss Telnor off?
Oh, well, Telnor is going to continue with the technology they already have here, you know. But for right now, I mean, the last time that I talked to these guys, to the, you know, Director de Operaciones en Telnor en Mexicali, he told me that they are stop any kind of the update technologies, you know, probably for the near future, you know, they will do it, but not now. I mean, and that's why, you know, they are limited, you know, in some numbers of the service directly from Telnor. Telcel is a different, because it's a cell phone, you know, and you can have the service also by Telcel. Telnor, we need to wait, you know, until probably, you know, when we start reactivating and we start regrowing again, you know, probably, you know, that's when we need to go again with them in order, you know, to update, you know, the technology.
So then we can plan on Telnor, if our service is out now, that it's probably not going to be reinstated. Is that the answer?
Yes.
On the Telnor thing, we've recently gone down and, you know, you pay your bill there. And they have big banners up currently advertising that beginning in December that they're going to have fiber optics service up to 200 megabits, and they've got a price for it and everything. And certain individuals here at the ranch have been told, like, we have Telcel and we have Telnor, and we're keeping Telnor because we're told if you drop it, you won't be able to get it back later and get the fiber optic. But if you keep it, even though it's not working and you're not getting anything for it, then you're in line to get the fiber optics when it comes in December. So is this fiber optics thing just a story? I mean, it's a big banner that they have on the building and everything now saying, coming December 2019.
I think this is just for for landlines, you know. There's the fiber optic that you see, you know. I mean, actually already, you know, from Mexicali to here, you know, they make, you know, the fiber optic here, you know. But I don't see, you know, that these guys are gonna have a fiber optic service very soon.
Here, I got an answer for you. I was down at Telnor just yesterday, and because I was actually going to cancel my service several months ago at Telnor because it has been absolute garbage since I got it. And they said, no, please give us a chance. Come December, we're rolling out fiber optic to San Felipe right now, and you're going to see phenomenal services all the way up to 200 megabytes. And you'll pay as you go, and actually the fee wasn't bad at all. I was really excited about that. So yesterday I said, how are we doing on the fiber optic? He goes, well, the good news is yeah, we're rolling out fiber optic, but you will never experience it at the condos. And I said, I don't understand. Why is that? They said, because it's going to go to a transition center. They're not going to roll the fiber to each and every individual condo. So your loss of data is going to be phenomenal. Currently, on a good day, I get maybe 2 megabytes. I pay for 6. Well, actually, I think I pay for 10. They kind of promised me 6, and I'm actually getting 2. If it doesn't just terminate and turn off, I have to reset it frequently. So I went with Telcel, and similar situation. Unlimited data equates to 100 gigabyte unthrottled, and then of course that falls down. There's option 2, which is Lynx, which does have much faster services, but if you try streaming devices behind Lynx, you find that lots of things are just unable to show. Like if you use a Fire Stick and crack it, open it up, and watch every freaking TV show out there, it's difficult behind Lynx. So there's no simple solution down here. I'm hoping that whatever they're going to do at the road is somehow able to be transitioned into the buildings. I mean, if there's wires there, I don't know what it's going to cost to pull. Certainly, I know we can't afford to do it immediately. But unless you run fiber direct to the condos, we'll never get to enjoy those kind of speeds.
I mean, originally all those condos were going to be fibered with fiber optics. The biggest issue was when we went out and asked the condo owners and everybody was using cell phones and nobody would sign up. So they put some fiber in here. There is some condos. I have it. What? I have a landline. But there is some, I'm not so good on this stuff. We do have, but I can tell you that with my the landline. With the landline, we get high-speed service there. No problem.
It's really hit and miss out there.
But what we had was when we first put, because I didn't want to string wires all over the desert and we needed phone service. So we did a deal with Telnor, okay, when Telnor was able to do wireless phone service. And the switch cost $1 million. And we paid 40% of it, they paid 60% of it. We were supposed to get 1,000 lines. And then we went out starting to try and, promote the service, etc. And those guys, we got to the point with them where, according to Jesus, who talks to the representatives, because I got really upset about the fact that these guys were not upgrading services, and because that's was part of our contract with them, that once we made the initial investment, and it's right at the top of the main entrance of La Ventana del Mar, where we gave them a piece of property and put the antenna up, and we housed the device, the equipment we bought to host the lines. But but those guys, the answer that we got back from them was, look, we're not going to expand any more services. Now that I'm listening to what you guys are talking about, I'm going to ask Jesus to go back to the regional director of Telnor and get the real story, and we'll put it into the newsletter. and with Steve Kemp. All right, he's already got a note to do that.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Hart. Live in the condos. We have Telmore. I don't particularly have any problem with it, except getting our bills every month. I don't know why there is a problem with that. Can't Telnor be responsible for getting them to the HOA office? Or can the HOA office be responsible for picking them up? But I like to know what I'm paying for every month when I go down and put my money in their machines.
I don't have any answer for that. I mean, normally, you know, when we're here in the office and in every place that we have phones and we have Telnor lines, we receive every month, you know, the bill. And if we don't, we go to the web page, you know, Telnor, and we got it from them. I mean, from there. Then I don't know. I mean, the rest of the owners, if they have the same problem. I mean, you have the same problem?
Yes.
Okay, I want to take another note.
Her issue may be alphabet, especially Telnor. They'll think your last name is your first name or your first name is your last name, and it'll be filed different. I don't know if you look under both.
Yeah, but I talk to, I go into the HOA office like I went in on Monday, the end of the month. There should be a bill either for last month or this month, and I say, no Telnor again? No, not yet. It's like,
But it comes every month, but again, you have to look at both your first name letter and your last name.
No, they don't every month, I know.
The bills are not
Well,
being delivered.
we've always done that.
They're not being delivered, and nobody is taking responsibility.
We're special.
So are these, Roberto, are these Telnor bills normally delivered to your HOA office? Yes. Okay, well then you guys need to tell Telnor that we had this annual meeting and their complaints about people not getting bills. Both Jesus and Roberto will talk about it.
Yes, good morning. A little bit on Telnor. I've had several meetings with them over the past year and a half. Originally, when we moved in, we had Telnor, and the service was terrible. The bottom line was, if you don't like it, cancel it, which we did. We got links now. As far as the fiber optics is concerned, the mountainside will not get fiber optic unless we at the ranch pay for the infrastructure. And Telnor is not going to do anything for it. If you cancel Telnor, you will never be able to get back because they're getting rid of the old service. They have a box, huge box with all the modems that they're coming back. So the only options that we have right now, the viable options is links. But the more people who sign on links, the slower your speed becomes. It's fiber optics to Mexicali, but then it's microwave line of sight to your house or your condo. So we need to look at some options if we can.
Well, I mean, if Telnor was smart, and like Jesus said, if we, the plan for us is to start growing again, but the issue there is if they want billable customers, you would think they would make the investment. Okay, if they want to go in and put fiber and make the investment, then they should do that to get customers. So, I mean, Jesus will research this and get something put it in our monthly newsletter.
You use your holes for electricity.
Just to clarify, fiber optics. There is no fiber optics in San Felipe. You have air optics, which is what Lynx uses. Fiber has to have a line from Mexicali to here. There is no line from Mexicali fiber optics to here. You have air optics. You can talk to Lynx and get that clarified if you'd like. Check our source. That's what they sold us when they came here. That's what you have.
I don't want to get into too much of a discussion about this, but when they did redid the highway, you guys saw this, a lot of you, all the tubing that was coming out of the highway, they did run fiber down here. Now they're not using it, okay, but there is fiber in this highway coming from Mexicali to San Felipe.
Pat. Okay, I just spoke with customer service office. All the receipts, arrived to the office. It's the same with CFE, it's the same with the water bill and Telmer. The difference with Telmer is that they arrive like 20 days after they have to. So that's a problem because usually they are due. So the best thing to do is I do it myself. I have in my phone a reminder when I have to pay my bill, and I go to the office and pay it even before the paper arrives to my home, because usually it's late and I am in town. Remember that in San Felipe 10 miles is the other side of the world. That's true. I have been living here for 4 years and the people say, oh, it's all the way to El Dorado. So it's better to go to the office. I put a reminder, I can show it. I can show it, I have it in myself. Because that's the truth, it's always late. The girls in the office, when they receive the paperwork from any company, CFE or water, they start separating them and put them in the boxes, but it's always late. Good thing CFE is not as late as Telmer. Yeah, that's the real thing. Thank you.
Okay, other questions?
Yeah, I have a question about this new development that's 30 miles south of the airport. Is it going to hamper our community? I'm more worried about our community, or is it going to help us? And in addition to that, is it also going to help San Felipe be more sustainable by itself too? Is that part of it?
Yeah, Dave, I think that I think it's going to help us a lot because, you know, those guys, just to put their infrastructure in, is going to cost them probably $50 million. Okay, and so what they're going to have to sell product at, homes and condos, etc., are going to be pretty expensive. So I'm sure people will shop when they start to look at different communities. Plus, you're 30 miles south of here. And, you know, that's pretty hard until there's enough built up down there for people that want to come into town to shop and do things, you know, whatever, or have a meal and drink, and, you know, going back and forth is not the easiest thing in the world when you're traveling that far. But I think it's going to help us. The other way it will help us is that with that kind of investment, these guys definitely need to get the international airport open. Okay, so the runway will get expanded, we'll start getting commercial flight service in here, and that's a prerequisite for them. They cannot make that kind of investment without bringing a plane that has at least a couple hundred seats on it to bring people here to look at their real estate. And the other thing, any drive traffic is going to have to drive past us to get there. So I mean, you know, I think it in general will help, and it's going to take them a good 18 to 24 months just to get the infrastructure in. I mean, that's the biggest holdup they have right now, has been this big battle they've had with CFE, because CFE says, well, you got to pay for, you know, for us to take that kind of for us to expand the electrical, do the expansion to get all the way to you. You guys have to pay for all that. That's a big number because you're talking about bringing the, you know, a big system down there. And so that's why they're going to go to solar, but what they're talking about the transmission lines, and even for them to feed back in the transmission lines, you know, the transmission lines are $1 million a mile. So there's a big expense, but they're supposedly, according to Oscar, the Secretary of Tourism, that's all getting worked out now with the new government. So
That's good. I just want to hear the positives. I want our community to thrive. As long as it doesn't hurt us, I'm all for it. A big plus there, wave your banners back, keep that golf course green, because you have an advantage if they're driving by. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes, sir. Actually, the airport has had quite a bit of improvement done to it. I mean, they put a whole new fueling system in there. They have put some money into the airport, the state government has. We have a particular interest, stake in the airport with the state government. One of my companies does. And so we're part of that whole issue with the airport. We have the ability to actually own a substantial part of that airport under a contract with the state, with a past governor, and that contract's still in effect. So one of our plans is that once we get ourselves fixed financially, that we want to go in and go ahead and execute the contract. And the way that contract is written with the state government is any monies that we do put in there to acquire our position in the airport, that those monies have to go into improvements into the airport. They can't go anyplace else. So I'm expecting that we're going to expand the runway about 1,000 feet, which right now it's 4,800 feet. We need to get it out to about over 5,500, 6,000. And make some more improvements out there and parking, etc. So I think all that will happen in the reasonably near future. I think that would, definitely should open it up to commercial traffic. Right now with a 4,800-foot runway, you've got limitations on how big a commercial plane you can bring in here.
If I may add something to that, under IATA regulations, which is International Air Transport Association, you cannot have commercial flights flying into an airport that carry more than 12 passengers unless there's a hospital of 50 beds close by to the airport. Charter flights are excluded and small planes are excluded, so we need to make a push to get a decent hospital here before we can get commercial flights.
Okay, if there's nothing else, thank you for being here. Have a good weekend, and anybody that wants to ask additional questions about master trust or individual trust, the trust, the Banco Mobiliario people will be here to help you. Thanks.
Juanitos at 6, Halloween party.
Juanitos will be, what time is it open? 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock.
When is this going to get posted? I'll deliver it to the, Arturo, he's in charge of it, and I hope tomorrow. Internet guy? Does it go on our website? Where does it go? Where is it posted? Where? YouTube. Oh, yeah, it's a YouTube, but where is it posted? What internet, what site? Our HOA? Let me ask David, I don't know, I just recorded it and you're recording it? Yeah, Arturo is his name.